It's 2 o'clock. I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Katie Monahan, and I'm a communications strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council. I coordinate the OAC's monthly webinar series, and I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Feature Your Folklore, funding available through the Legends Lore Roadside Marker program. I will introduce our presenters here in just a minute, but before we dive in, there are, of course, just a few housekeeping items that I need to go over. So first, everyone tuning in today is in listen only mode, but if you have a question at any point, go ahead and type it into the Q&A box there in your control panel. My colleague Kathy Signorino and I are here behind the scenes monitoring those questions, and we'll be sure to leave plenty of time to answer all questions you may have during the dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please be sure to use the Q&A and not the chat. It's just a little bit easier to track everything through the Q&A box, and we don't want to miss anybody. So next, live captioning is available for today's webinar, and you can access those captions by clicking on the closed captioning icon in your control panel. And if you have audio issues or trouble connecting, we recommend refreshing your browser. If that doesn't work, try logging off and logging back in. And also please keep in mind that because we are presenting from different locations, there may be some variations in bandwidth or internet stability. So if the sound fluctuates or one of us freezes up for a minute, thank you in advance for bearing with us. We promise we'll keep on rolling. And finally, we are recording today's webinar, and that recording will be available on our webinars page at oac.ohio.gov/webinars and on our YouTube channel by early next week. And everyone who registered for today's webinar will also receive a follow-up email containing a link to the recording and a copy of the slide deck. All right, so that's it for housekeeping. Next, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Christina Benedetti, who will get us started and introduce our guest presenters. So Christina is the OAC's Folk and Traditional Arts Contractor, and she also serves as coordinator for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation's Legends Lore Roadside Marker program, which we are, of course, here to talk about today. So Christina, welcome. Thanks so much for being here to lead us through this. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Katie. Today we're excited to share about a new partnership we've embarked on with the William G. Pomeroy Foundation to bring the Legends Lore Roadside Marker program to Ohio. I'd like to welcome our two guests today, Jodi Oakes from the Pomeroy Foundation and Krystal Luketic from the Waynesville Area Heritage and Cultural Center in Waynesville, Ohio, who have the distinct honor of being the first Ohio organization to receive a Legends Lore marker. Jodi, who we'll hear from first, joined the Pomeroy Foundation in 2019 to work exclusively on the National Votes for Women Trail. Following the conclusion of the program, Jodi transitioned to her current role as Senior Research Historian and Grants Reviewer for several of the Foundation's signature marker programs. Jodi oversees the administration of the Legends Lore Marker Grant Program, working to ensure marker applications are complete and accurate. And Krystal, who we'll hear from second, is a community organizer, educator, and event facilitator based in Waynesville, Ohio. She has worked in the nonprofit sector for 18 years and currently serves on the board of trustees of the Waynesville Area Heritage and Cultural Center as publicity chair and a member of the Grants Committee. The Cultural Center is focused on preserving the history of Waynesville and surrounding areas in Warren County. So I'm going to pass it to Jodi to kick us off, and she'll give us some background about the Pomeroy Foundation and fill us in on the Legends Lore program.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. I'm thrilled to be here representing the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. And as Christina mentioned, before diving into the Legends Lore Marker program, we thought it might be helpful to provide a brief introduction to the foundation and our mission. So we were established in 2005, and we're a private philanthropic organization located in Syracuse, New York. We have two main initiatives. Our For Life side, which began when our founder and trustee Bill Pomeroy was fighting an aggressive form of leukemia. Fortunately, he found a perfect match through the Be the Match bone marrow registry and was able to receive a stem cell transplant that saved his life. Bill felt that should he survive, he would help others in a similar situation. And this was the impetus for the foundation's first initiative to help diversify the bone marrow donor registry so that Anyone from any ethnic background can find a matched donor. To advance this very important mission, the foundation partners with many incredible organizations that are leaders in this life-saving work for patients facing a blood cancer diagnosis. Our other initiative is our For History side of the foundation, which is where I do my work. The foundation helps people celebrate and preserve their community's histories and stories by providing grants to obtain signage in the form of roadside markers and plaques. Since 2005, we have awarded more than 2,000 grants for markers and bronze plaques across the United States. We have grown to offer 6 signature marker programs, including our Legends Lore Marker grant program, which we are thrilled to partner on with the Ohio Arts Council for the state of Ohio. The foundation met the Ohio Arts Council at the 2019 American Folklore Society Conference, which is a conference we really enjoy going to because we get to meet folklorists from around the country. And starting in 2022, we were fortunate enough to begin our Legends Lore partnership with Ohio Arts Council. Ohio is special to the foundation, with our founder, Bill, having family roots in the state. Since 2014, the foundation has partnered with Ohio History Connection on the Ohio Historical Marker Program, which you might be familiar with, seeing signs around your state. Our Legends Lore Marker Program, however, differs from the Ohio Historical Markers in both subject and look. The Legends Lore Marker Program is designed to promote cultural tourism and commemorate legends and folklore as part of a community's heritage. The marker grants are fully funded and cover the entire cost of the marker, pole, and shipping. Legends Lore grants are available to 501c3 organizations, nonprofit academic institutions, and local, state, and federal government entities within the United States. Interested individuals are encouraged to contact an eligible local organization, such as a local historical society or folklore-related nonprofit, and they can apply for the grant on behalf of the individual. If your grant application is approved, upon receipt of your signed acceptance letter, the foundation mails a check for the total amount made payable to your applying organization. We will also provide instructions on how to order the marker from our foundry, Ciowa Studios, which I'm happy to say is located in Marietta, Ohio, so these signs are Ohio made. The grant recipient is only responsible for the installation of the marker, so actually putting the marker in the ground. The markers have a really distinctive design of deep red with light beige lettering and border, which you can see an example of here, our John Henry Legends Lore Marker in Talcott, West Virginia. Each marker has a title line that allows 15 characters and 5 body lines of text that allow 27 characters each, including spaces and punctuation. Each marker also includes 2 credit lines below the inscription. So those are those 2 smaller lines of text that you see at the bottom of the sign. The first line features the name of the foundation's state folklore partner. So in Ohio, it will read Ohio Arts Council. And the second line lists the foundation's name, followed by the year the grant was awarded. So Legends Lore markers commemorate an aspect of a community's folklore rather than historic facts or historical events that lack any folkloric aspects. We have a lot of helpful information on our website, wgpfoundation.org, including our Legends Lore guidelines outlining the genres of folklore that most successful applications will likely include. And we understand that the definition of folklore can vary greatly. For our purposes, we define folklore as generally describing the stories, customs, traditions, and expressive arts and crafts that are shared by a community and are passed on by word of mouth or observation from one person to another, often from generation to generation. Whether based in fiction or truth, folklore generally comprises the things people believe, say, do, and make, which can be expressed in numerous ways. And you can see some examples listed here. Myths, legends, tall tales, and folk tales. So those are those traditional stories passed along in a community. Place name anecdotes, a traditional story that explains the reason for the name of a location. Folk songs and ballads, superstitions, and then on the folk life side, those traditions passed along in a community like festivals, holidays, parades, rituals, certain dances or art forms or music. Applications are accepted online. To apply, you will need to go to our website where you can find information on the program guidelines, eligibility, important dates, and how to apply. You will also find our downloadable How to Apply guide on our website. And this guide will also be sent out with a follow-up email to today's webinar. If you're interested in applying, I encourage you to take a look at this guide. It will walk you step by step through submitting an application. Applications are accepted twice a year during 2 grant rounds. For the first grant round for 2023, the application became available on March 13th. However, you didn't miss anything. It's open until May 1st. If you're interested in applying and can't reach that May 1st deadline, there is a second grant round that opens on August 28th of this year. Applications must include your applying organization's information, the proposed installation location of the marker, along with a letter from the landowner granting permission for the marker to be installed. And we do provide a template for that letter on the application. We also ask for a brief description and significance of the folklore being commemorated, so 1 to 2 paragraphs, along with your proposed marker inscription. We also ask that you submit any documentation that supports your proposed inscription. So unlike our historic marker programs, primary sources are not required for Legends and Lore, but we ask that you supply any documents that describe or demonstrate the legend or folklore that you're commemorating with the marker. Once your completed application is received, it will move through our evaluation process where it will be reviewed by one of the Foundation's professional folklore consultants. The consulting folklorist will reach out to you with any questions or concerns they have and assist you to get your application in the best possible order prior to final review by the Foundation trustees. So that's largely who you'll be communicating with through the evaluation process. Ohio Arts Council will also review the application before it goes before the Foundation trustees. And it's common for a proposed marker inscription to be further edited with your assistance for maximum clarity and to ensure it meets the Foundation marker text guidelines. We have a certain way of saying things, and we like to maintain consistency across the marker program. Final grant decisions will be sent via email, and largely communication will be via email through the whole evaluation process. And decisions are typically made within 4 to 6 weeks following the grant deadline. So with that, Christina, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Jodi. I have a quick question for you, since you have been working on this program and have seen a lot of applications come through. So I'm wondering for you, like, what do you think, why is lore important? And also, how is it different or perhaps similar to more straight ahead historical information that in Ohio, for example, we're used to seeing on our historic markers?
Yeah. So you might have noticed I'm a research historian, not a folklorist. So, that's one of the reasons why we at the Foundation so appreciate our partnership with Ohio Arts Council, with you sharing your expertise on folklore in your state. And it really helps us to continue to grow this program. With that said, I find lore important because it speaks to our shared heritage. Which is how I think it's similar to history. It's something that we all share in one way or another that speaks to how we came to be who we are in this present moment. However, lore and historical information are of course different, and sometimes that difference is really obvious, and other times it's easy to confuse the two, with the distinction a bit murky. Not too long ago, I came across a great description of folklore from the Texas Folklore Society, which is one of our newer Legends and Lore state partners. It was a quote on their website from one of their past board presidents that said, "History is what happened at a particular time in the past, while folklore describes how people coped with the events of history." And they went on to give the example that during the Great Depression, history describes the conditions and events that happened during that time, while folklore is how people survived those times. The things they ate when food was scarce, the way they dealt with a lack of money or jobs, the ways they entertained or expressed themselves with music or art, and the stories that they told about those events. So I often think back to that quote, and I find it a helpful way to frame folklore and history. And it's a bit simplistic, but I think about it as history is what happened, while folklore is how people coped with what happened, which takes on all sorts of different forms and expressions that we get to see commemorated with the Legends and Lore program.
Wonderful. Thank you for bringing that quote to us, Jodi. I think it's a nice distinction and a helpful way to think about when people are trying to think about if they have community folklore of their own that they want to maybe propose for a marker. So we're going to transition over to Krystal here in a moment, but I just wanted to let you know real quick, you can find links to this information in the OAC's Traditional Arts webpage, and we'll drop the URL here in the chat. It's also important to note that if you decide to make an application, you will be applying directly to the Pomeroy Foundation and not through the OAC. So we just wanted to make sure that that was clear. You can get to the Pomeroy Foundation via our website, but the application will all be with the Pomeroy Foundation. So next, we thought it would be helpful for you all to hear from a successful Legends and Lore grant applicant. So we're delighted to have Krystal Luketic here from the Waynesville Area Heritage and Cultural Center to talk about their application for a marker commemorating the ghost of Mary, a local ghost story in a town that is known for its friendly spirits. Krystal, can you tell us about your organization, the story that you're commemorating, and also a little about your application process? Oh, I think you're on mute, Krystal.
Sorry. Thank you so much for having me. We're excited to have received this grant, and we look forward to putting the marker in front of our building. We're the Waynesville Area Heritage and Cultural Center, but we are also known as the museum at the Friends Home. And I will give a little bit of background on our organization and then talk about our application process and how we look to use this marker in front of our building. The concept for the museum at the Friends Home was developed in 1999 by a group of local citizens who felt that Waynesville's rich history needed to be housed somewhere in our town. The museum opened in 2000. We had 6 exhibit rooms, and we're an all-volunteer organization. We don't have any staff, and we operate on memberships, donations, fundraisers, admission, and grants. Originally, the building was constructed as a retirement home for elderly Quakers. It had 16 boarder rooms, 4.5 bathrooms, and both a first and second floor sitting room, which was unusual at that time. Both men and women lived in the boarding home, and the property was fully self-sufficient. They had their own livestock, they maintained a garden, and on Sundays, the home was open to the public for a community dinner that cost 25 cents. The Friends boarding home also housed out-of-town guests, usually Quakers in town visiting family or attending Quaker events, such as their yearly meeting. Later on, it was used as a place where female teachers who taught at the early Waynesville school could stay. And it was a boarding home until 1988, when the building was leased as a group home to the county for people with developmental disabilities. It closed in 1997 and sat vacant until the museum was opened in 2000. When the Civil War began, Quakers went against the majority opinion and refused to support the war. Quakers held a basic belief in human equality. Even though many of the early Friends owned slaves, the practice of slavery became a moral problem for Quakers. Because they did not want to live in a slave-based society, many Quakers began to leave the South and headed west, and many north. Mary's family moved north and settled in Waynesville. They lived in a house across the street from the museum, long before the boarding home was built. When Mary's parents fell ill, they sent Mary and her siblings to live with family throughout the area. When they recovered, they collected all the children, but they could never find Mary. The legend goes that Mary is sometimes seen on our porch waiting or calling for her mother, who is buried in the cemetery nearby, the Quaker cemetery. The application process was very easy. We submitted a short text about Mary and the supporting documents that the legend has been told in newspaper articles and books. And after submitting the application, I was contacted with some suggested edits. We went back and forth until our organization and the Pomeroy Foundation agreed on the wording for the marker. And what we hope to accomplish with this marker is that sharing the legends and spooky tales actually opens up a larger discussion about the history of our community. Waynesville was a large Quaker community, part of the Underground Railroad, and a place where the Quaker belief in equality allowed for women like Dr. Mary L. Cook to be the town doctor and thrive in a male-dominated society at that time. Mary's story, although a legend about a ghost, allows us to share the Quaker history in our community, which is housed in our museum library. You may learn more about our history and our historical ghost tours, and we also offer an Underground Railroad tour. And for more information on that, you can go to our website, friendshomemuseum.org, and register for those tours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krystal. I love the way that your example here illustrates the way that the markers can be used as sort of a snapshot, but that also speak to a larger history. And I think you all have done a really excellent job with that. So thank you. So to wrap up, Jodi has brought some examples of other markers from other states, just to give you a sense of what kinds of lore this program can actually feature. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Jodi.
Thanks. So as we've talked about, the Legends and Lore Marker program helps communities promote cultural tourism by highlighting their local folklore and legends with fully funded roadside markers. We see the impact of these markers in their ability to put a public spotlight on your local and regional cultural traditions and their potential to support cultural or heritage tourism, which will hopefully provide economic benefits to the communities where the markers are placed. Heritage tourists seek the authentic and unique, which lends itself really well to the Legends and Lore program. Legends and Lore markers also create opportunities for meaningful conversations and community awareness surrounding folklore and your legends while celebrating what makes your community unique. Those unique shared stories that distinguish your town from others and make people want to visit. And these markers offer opportunities for connection in a very approachable way. And those opportunities for connection can entice people to want to learn more about your community beyond the story on the marker, like Krystal explained so well in her presentation. These markers can help attract or grab people's attention, so they will hopefully look to learn more about the communities where the markers are placed. Since the program was launched in 2015, the Pomeroy Foundation has funded nearly 150 Legends and Lore markers across multiple states nationwide. Current marker examples highlight a wide range of subject matter, from folk heroes and folk songs to cultural phenomena and stories that have been told for generations. So as Christina mentioned, I'd like to share with you some examples of Legends and Lore markers just to show some of the unique stories that have been commemorated with this program. I'll also briefly show an example of an unsuccessful application just to give a sense of why an application might not be approved. Legends and Lore is currently available in 13 states, including Ohio. So in addition to a range of lore, there are a variety of states represented in these examples as well. I thought we'd start off in the Pomeroy Foundation's home state, looking at the Champy Legends and Lore marker located on Lake Champlain in Plattsburgh, New York. This marker was awarded to the town of Plattsburgh. It reads, Champy, legendary lake monster lives here. Over 300 sightings reported since 1819, up to 200 feet long. New York state law protects this regional icon. So Champy has become this beloved regional icon that's often used to promote tourism on Lake Champlain. And this qualified for a Legends and Lore marker because it's in commemoration of this traditional legend that's about Champy that's been passed down within this community, in this case, since at least 1819, and that has attracted people to this area to get a glimpse of Champy for themselves. Next, we have the Goose Day Legends and Lore Marker located outside of the Mifflin County Library in Lewistown, Pennsylvania. The applying organization for this marker was a local nonprofit that supports regional environmental and cultural programs in this area. The Goose Day legend promises that a goose eaten on September 29th ensures wealth and prosperity all year round. The tradition has roots in Michaelmas Day, a Christian festival observed on September 29th. However, in this part of Pennsylvania, there is no longer any religious association, and the day is now simply known as Goose Day, which since the 1970s has been an official county holiday in this part of the state. And this qualified for Legends and Lore as a genre of folk life, being this traditional event that's passed along within this community. And you can see a fun image that was shared with us of this community celebrating Goose Day with their new marker and their goose mascot. Then we have our Herbs and Healing Legends and Lore marker located in the town of Fountain in Pitt County, North Carolina. And it was the town that successfully applied for the marker. It commemorates Emma Dupree, or Aunt Emma, a prominent herbalist, traditional healer, and folk medicine practitioner from Pitt County, North Carolina. She was also known as a granny woman, which is a local term for a person skilled in the art of traditional healing, and she was known for what was referred to as her garden-grown pharmacy. The state of North Carolina presented her with the North Carolina Heritage Award for Lifetime Achievement, recognizing her as one of North Carolina's premier folk medicine practitioner. So that's where that language on the marker of renowned for her remedies came from. Like Goose Day, this subject qualified for a Legends and Lore marker as a genre of folk life, commemorating Emma Dupree and the traditional skill or practice of folk medicine. Then we have the Arborglyphs Legends and Lore marker located outside of the Regional History Museum in Ketchum, Idaho. The applying organization was the Trailing of the Sheep Cultural Heritage Center, an interesting organization that celebrates and preserves the history and cultures of sheep herding in Idaho. Throughout South Central Idaho, numerous images and writings can be found carved into the trunks of aspen trees, which you can see some examples that were shared with us here. Known as the Arborglyphs, these depictions in bark show everything from animals and fishing boats to dates, names, and poems, and are an example of the cultural history surrounding sheep ranching and herding in Idaho. The carvings were made by sheep herders as they led their flocks through locations such as Idaho's Wood River Valley. During the hottest times of the summer, herders often would take cover under the shade of aspen trees and would pass the time by carving their creations into the tree bark. So this is an aspect of folk life, this traditional activity passed along within the community that's also representative of the community. Then we have the Johnnie Johnson Legends and Lore marker located in Palatine Park in Fairmount, West Virginia. This marker was awarded to the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Marion County and celebrates Fairmount native Johnnie Johnson, who's considered a rock and roll pioneer and who helped define the early genre and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001. The city of Fairmount is home to the annual Johnnie Johnson Blues and Jazz Festival, which is held every July in the Palatine Park. So this is a really fitting location to honor and celebrate this individual with a Legends and Lore marker that highlights an aspect of this community's cultural heritage. So we've seen several examples of successful Legends and Lore markers, and I would just want to briefly look at an unsuccessful application that we received from an applicant in Louisiana. It does have a happy ending, however. So the proposed marker inscription for the unsuccessful application read, A.K. Klingman owned large plant nursery, Homer's Hotel, and failed railroad to Minden. Fought off 1893 attempt on life in Ramsey-Tuggle feud. So why was this unsuccessful for Legends and Lore? During our application evaluation process, our consulting folklorist and our Louisiana state partner identified this as purely historical in nature, and that the proposed subject was lacking any folkloric aspects. After their review, they could find no identifiable lore or legend, nor an oral tradition surrounding the subject present. So this is not successful for Legends and Lore. However, the state partner suggested looking for any local lore that might exist related to the Ramsey-Tuggle feud that's mentioned in the proposed inscription. And that leads me to the White Lightning Legends and Lore marker that you can see here, located along Louisiana Highway 146 in Homer, Louisiana. This came from the same applicant, the Claiborne Parish Library, and it commemorates the traditional nickname of a major thoroughfare across North Louisiana. And the White Lightning Road runs through a rural area that was once dotted with illegal moonshine stills used in the production of corn liquor. And the road was the center point of the Ramsey-Tuggle feud. So these historical events in the Ramsey-Tuggle feud took place around this road. And a Legends and Lore marker commemorating this traditional name for the road was successful due to the folklore present, including an oral tradition of the road being called White Lightning Road that still persists in wide circulation today. So as you can see from these few examples, the Legends and Lore program includes a wide range of folklore and legends. And if you have any questions on Legends and Lore or the foundation or any of our programs, please don't hesitate to reach out. And here's my contact information. And I'll pass it back to you, Christina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jodi. So we hope this is giving everyone listening some good ideas about how your own community's folklore and folk life might be a good fit for a Legends and Lore marker. So with that, I'll ask you to join me in thanking our presenters, Jodi Oakes and Krystal Luketic once again. And I'm going to hand it back to Katie for our Q&A session.
Great, thanks Christina, and thanks so much Jodi and Krystal for all of that great information. We do have one question, and I'm sorry if you covered this already, Jodi, but somebody asked, is there a map or guided information on other locations of the markers, you know, where they would be in Ohio, but then also across the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have an online map on our website, and it includes all the markers for across our multiple programs. So you do have to filter to just Legends and Lore. And I don't know if we want to share the link for that. Let's see.
Yeah, if you have it handy, you can feel free to drop it in the chat. Yeah.
You know, if you go right to our homepage, it's right on our homepage, the marker map button, orange. It's an orange button right on the homepage. Right here, let me see. Put it right in the Q&A or in the chat.
Yeah, if you want to drop it in the chat.
Sure.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. If anyone else has questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. In the meantime, Christina, did you want to talk briefly about one more time the folk and traditional arts page on our website?
Sure, yeah. We just wanted to give a little image here of where you can find some of this information. If you go to the Ohio Arts Council's webpage and look at the programs tab, if you click on that and drop down at the bottom, it says folk and traditional. And when you click on that, you will be taken to the Ohio Folk and Traditional Arts page. On that landing page, we have information and links to all of the programs that we have, one of which being the Pomeroy Foundation's Legends and Lore program. So that's a quick way to get to this information also through our website. And there's also just fun stuff to check out there as well. So.
Great, thanks, Christina. Let's see if we have any other things here. And I just wanted to show you. So when you scroll down that page, we ran out of room on the slide here, but when you scroll down that page, you can see all of our folk and traditional programs and Legends and Lore Roadside Markers. It's right in there. That's what you'll see at the bottom there. So I think this was an incredibly thorough presentation. We don't have any more questions, which is fantastic. You both did a great job. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations to Krystal, for a successful application. We're excited to have the Waynesville marker as our first here in Ohio. Hopefully it is definitely not the last. We hope to see many more popping up after having this information here today. So thanks so much, Krystal, for sharing your story, for sharing Mary's story. And Jodi, thanks for all of your information and for the partnership. Christina, thanks for tying us all together here. As I mentioned, everyone will get a copy of the recording of this webinar, and it'll be available on our webinars page at oac.ohio.gov/webinars early next week. And I think that does it for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Katie. Thanks, Jodi and Krystal.